Hello and welcome to Upgrade 100 Special, together with Beniamin Mincu, founder and CEO of MultiversX. Welcome.
Hello there, Dragoș. Great to be here.
There are, I think, 6 years since we've first met, and around 4 since we've decided to look deeper in what MultiversX is doing. We were visiting you in Sibiu, in Transylvania, Romania, to see the fantastic development. But now, looking back, seems to me that there are at least 10 years.
Long time indeed.
Most probably seems like 2 years for you, but looking behind and what you've achieved is pretty impressive. So I think it's a very important thing we have to establish from the beginning, guys. Usually, when we are doing this kind of tech leader talks and Upgrade 100 specials and so on and so forth, we are addressing a very specific niche. It's very clear who we are talking with. Corporate people, entrepreneurs, politicians, and so on and so forth. In this case, it's different. Why? Because basically MultiversX is not only a company, it's not only a startup, but a builder of an entire ecosystem. So, in short, if you're an entrepreneur, you're interested in the Web3 space, and maybe you are looking about the right partners to develop things, you must watch this. But if you're an entrepreneur in tech or any other domain, and you're not interested in Web3 space or blockchain, even if I think you should be, it's also an important discussion because you can get inspired. Moving forward, if you're in a corporation, maybe an established company, you're an entrepreneur maybe, or an CEO of a big company, I think there are learnings in this discussion, because the way MultiversX is structured and the way is developed is very, very interesting for the, let's say, classical business world. And last but not least, if you're in politics, or if you're working in a state-owned institution, or you're working for public authority or a government, it's also important to understand how this new world is emerging and what are the principles that are completely different from the, let's say, classical setup. This is the general context we are starting this conversation, so let's dive in. Benny, let's start with the big picture. It's not the best time for Europe, let's say, neither geopolitically speaking or strategically speaking, and it's a common fact that technologically speaking, Europe is having a problem, lacking behind other markets, especially US, China, and others. Is this a vulnerability? Is this an advantage? How Europe should play this card?
So I would say a few things. First, MultiversX can be seen as this network that is geographically distributed, present in several countries of the world, with 3,200 nodes and validators that are part of the network, with builders from more than 20 countries around the world, community in more than 40 countries. So it's clear that MultiversX as an ecosystem and network exists in several countries already. Now, beyond that, there is in the structure of MultiversX a foundation that stewards the network, and the goal of the foundation is just to expand the network adoption and so forth as fast as possible and as wide as possible. Beyond that, there also is a set of companies, a sort of group that is here to take some of the technology that MultiversX is building and bring it to specific stakeholders and specific sectors of the economy where this technology can be put to great use, can solve very significant problems. And this is what we're trying to do. But beyond, let's say, the MultiversX as a network, the group that serves the network and builds on top and builds some of the, let's say, core products and tools and so forth so that the network can exist and expand. There's also a very vast ecosystem of builders that we'll probably touch on with hundreds of startups from around the world that are building. Now, specifically on this, I do believe that we're at a point where Europe is in a sort of crisis, a crisis of identity perhaps, a crisis of means and tooling, perhaps a crisis of, let's say, bureaucrats that have lost either the knowledge or some touch with the different things that they can do. And one of the theses, one of the ideas around which we're building a kind of first step for MultiversX is this idea of the renaissance of European ambition. And in this idea, there are a few points. One is that at some point, Europe was the cradle of civilization. A lot of fundamental breakthroughs, technologies, ideas in several fields started and set out to revolutionize the world from Europe. And I do believe that from that standpoint to the point where we are right now, we've sort of fallen behind, as you've mentioned, in several respects. And at the same time, given the technology we have today, given the new generation of...
Or we don't have today in Europe.
Yes, the technology that we have, fortunately, geographically distributed thanks to the internet and so forth, I think we can and should build a new revived ambition that does not exist at this point in Europe. And I think MultiversX can be this flame that ignites a kind of engineering and technology powerhouse that then can spill over in several areas of society, whether it's education, whether it's just technology used in several countries, or just a network that enables some things that were not possible in Europe. I don't think MultiversX will stay or is confined by Europe, but we definitely have our roots in some sense here. And we are probably the strongest magnet for engineering people, but also brilliant people from every field. So attracting them, giving them a great challenge to focus their energy on is the main idea that we're trying to leverage. Then as we scale, I think a lot of other things can be done in Europe, and it's precisely because they have not been done, because they're problematic, that we see them as opportunities to act on.
So somehow these advantages of the current status of Europe can be transformed in advantages on the long run, using also the theoretical heritage that we still have.
We do have the heritage, and I think the young people especially have a hunger to fight for something that is much more than, let's say, bureaucracies, much more than merely political discussions. They want to see some challenges through which we can really improve the world, whether it's in different sciences, whether it's in medicine, whether it's in technologies that improve the entire economic model or payments model, finance, infrastructure. Those are challenges that we need today because otherwise people, either the most ambitious people, they just leave to places where they see really interesting challenges they can fight for, and Europe will probably be lost on the map. If you think about the most important fields, whether it's blockchain, whether it's artificial intelligence, spatial computing, and other technologies like this, you want to be in a world where you don't only have the US and China, but Europe exists as a force for improvement and so forth. At this point, it's uncommonly and surprisingly absent in the conversation, especially when it's not about regulation. So I do think that planting a flag here and igniting this force, this energy, is extremely important for Europe, and we're curious to see how it plays out.
As we speak, Europe seems to be very performant in throwing new rules, trying to regulate certain spaces. I've watched a lot of your interviews during recent X Day. I do recommend the folks that are watching to go deeper. We will help also with some links and keynotes that we do recommend as Upgrade 100. And it was a common theme among some very respected guests that you have there, like Alex Tabarrok, for example, the very well-known economist, or Anthony Pompiliano and other international guests, that underlined this: how regulation can be an obstructor or can suffocate somehow the innovation, and where is the level where the governments and states must leave entrepreneurs do their job. I liked this phrase. I think it's Anthony's. The role of the governments is not to solve the problems, but to create the incentives for the entrepreneurs to solve the problems. Do you think we are over-regulated here in the European Union? And what we can answer to those that are maybe a little bit conservative and they are thinking about, okay, without rules, a lot of bad things can happen. How we can establish the balance, too much regulation versus maybe too much freedom? Is there any danger in having too much freedom?
Yeah, I believe that if you think about, interestingly enough, the idea of renaissance of European ambition also begs a bit the question on something that came before it, which were the Dark Ages. If you look at the Dark Ages were not about religion. They were about lost knowledge that made people almost impotent, unable to understand the things around them, unable to improve them, unable to interact with them. And I think this is the challenge that we face today in Europe, precisely when you see reflexes of regulation and only regulation to whatever the question is. So if the question is how can we improve medicine and the only answer is regulation, that's not enough. If the question is how can we improve education and the only answer is regulation, again, it's not enough. If the question is how can we accelerate economic growth and the only question is regulation, that's not enough. So what I'm saying is there are several components, several elements that are very important. I do believe that regulation can play a guiding role, and it should not be the Wild West. But I also think that we're at a point where, given how important the technologies are, how large of an impact they will continue to have during the next period, if Europe is not present in the conversation, and present not with regulation but with contribution, with brilliant minds that are day and night working to push these technologies forward, we might most likely lose this battle or lose even the opportunity of being part of the conversation. We don't want that for Europe. We want a Europe that understands and has some natural reflexes when it comes to science, when it comes to technology, engineering, culture, philosophy. If this are absent, then we start to live in a state of a world that is not exciting to say the least. I mean, where you run away, where you naturally move to other countries, other parts of the world, especially today when you have the opportunities, where you literally from one day to another can move. And I think with what we're building, the states can actually play different games, can set new incentives for their local regions, for their schools, for their universities. They can create new economics models to incentivize the different students and give power to the teachers to play other type of games that were not possible at this point. There's a field in blockchain technology which is called decentralized science, which is just this idea that you can crowdsource a lot of problems with these new tools in fields that you believe are important. So to sum up, there is a great opportunity to revive ambition and look for things that were equal to the, let's say, pyramids that we've built, or the aqueducts that the Romans built, that we can do today. If we only scratch the surface, that's not a way that is exciting in any way to live.
I strongly recommend your discussion live on stage at X Day with Alex Tabarok. The ones that are following us will find a direct link to that.
And the title is very interesting because we discussed with him specifically how you can kill an economy.
Or how to not kill.
Yeah. Initially, we titled it "How to Kill an Economy." Then we added the "not" because some people may have. We thought
on a positive note.
Yeah. May learn the wrong lessons, but I do believe again it's very easy to add bottlenecks and suffocate the economy.
And it's also interesting that Europe maybe is having some lesson to learn from United States, because we see also in the United States, even if US is much more advanced, if we are looking in the last 20-15 years, we are seeing a much faster pace of growth for US, looking at simple metrics like GDP per capita, for example, and Europe is evolving but much slower. But if we are looking at the United States alone, it's also a discussion, because in between the 90s and 1950, for example, the acceleration pace was much faster than in the last 15 years of the last century. So the pace is slowing also in the US, and maybe this is an opportunity for Europe to look and learn a little bit and not do the same mistakes. No?
There's an entire discussion, let's say, in history, sociology, and some other sciences as to what creates this next waves in societies. Is it technology? Is it founders with companies and so forth? Is it different type of cultural waves that come and are all woven together? And I think there's an entire thesis and an entire discussion in economics, for instance, with a term called the Great Stagnation. And there's a discussion as to what caused this stagnation rather than growth and so forth. But if you look at what we have today, at the technologies we have today, if you look at the cultural landscape we have today, what's surprising and worrying for Europe is that you don't see a vision that would get the people excited. There's an absence of a vision. In the US, at least you have a number of visions. Some may be crazy, some may be outrageous.
Some incompatible one with each other.
100%. But I think having this idea that as humanity, as a society, you're pushing, for instance, to go to Mars and build something. That's extremely, extremely important.
Vision, dream, and execution is somehow what you are trying to build, if I'm not wrong, in the MultiversX. And I think it's an interesting lesson also for other players in the ecosystem, not only startups but also public authorities, politicians, and big corporations, and so on and so forth. Somehow I'm listening to you, and I'm realizing that you're applying those principles somehow in what you are trying to build there. And maybe Europe also needs to be a little bit unconventional in the way that it's able to jump a little bit, to cover the gap. And for that, maybe the classical old rules are not functioning anymore. Focusing a little bit more on the business side of things, and also addressing this challenge that Europe needs to be inspired by unconventional methodologies to cover the gap and to accelerate the development. I think it's very interesting for the guys that are watching us to explain a little bit how MultiversX is different as a company, and how do you build the ecosystem you are developing. Why? Because and I'm talking now like let's say an immigrant in the space. So I've watched the old business models having success or falling, and now I'm looking very interested at your spectacular approach, and it's fascinating to me to observe how different this is and how efficient, because the development is quite impressive. So on the one hand, you have your for-profit activities because you're a company and you have to cover a lot of costs, and I can imagine there are a lot of them. Just looking at the list of your projects, it's obvious that there are a lot of costs. But you're also operating in a non-profit. Also, your technology is a platform for other companies to launch projects, and some of them maybe even compete with you in specific niches. It's interesting, and I think it's an interesting discussion to have for the classical ecosystem, let's say, to understand better how different are you and why this is the way maybe a new, better business world will be built, a decentralized world, a world that is driven by Web3 principles. Let's try to explain a little bit.
Maybe it's very useful to first define a bit which are the different structural components, and then also discuss a bit how they work together, why they create something new that enables businesses and different actors from around the world to interact. So when you build a blockchain network, the entire idea around this network is that technology is open source, so reviewable by anyone in the world that has the know-how and can read code. Second, everything that happens within the blockchain is transparent. And then third, there's an open call to builders or community all over the world to essentially come in and participate in the network in different ways. Whether that is related to writing code, whether that is related to organizing things, distilling them, sharing information, educating other people, or whether that is being part of being a validator within the network, running a node, or even being an investor, contributing to what's happening in the network and so forth. That's one element, and that is important because when you start a network, the question is what corresponding legal notion can you use to manage such an open source decentralized network? Because once this network exists, this has a life of its own. The network essentially doesn't have a CEO. The network only has other people that contribute to the network, builders that build on it, and so forth. So we have this network, and this network is administered by a foundation, because the foundation is the steward of the network.
And the foundation is a non-profit organization.
Exactly.
Basically,
Exactly.
just ensuring that the network is
developing,
developing,
expanding,
okay.
has several efforts around the world just to make sure that awareness is there, that adoption happens, and then many experiments happen such that the network can discover which are the best use cases to use and explore. Now, in order to, on the other hand, serve the network, there exists a set of companies that we've built specifically to serve the needs of the network, which means that we built a kind of wallet super app. We've built the entire tool set around the network that is necessary. We've built a payment processor and so forth. This entire set of companies is there to take the technology and essentially repackage it and sell it, or bring it in the real world to use it so that some very specific use cases or problems are solved and value is being brought to the network. This is very different from what the network is doing as an ecosystem and so forth. The set of companies are trying to take the technology and ship it to businesses, enterprises, users.
And transform it in different business models.
Exactly.
It's like an operating system
Exactly.
that is at their disposal. Right?
Now, the network exists, and as it exists, the power of the network is in the community and the builders. Because if you have a community and set of builders, the larger they are and the more distributed around the world they are, the faster the ecosystem can grow.
Basically, the community are the users.
Exactly.
Okay, so basically in the Web3 and the blockchain world, we don't have consumers in the classical
Yes.
sense. There are part of the community, and they are very important contributors to the way the
Yes.
project is being developed, right?
There's a saying in the Web3 space that you vote with your wallet.
Okay.
As opposed to just being there and consuming stuff. Here you can participate. You can just visit the stuff, let's say visit the project and look at it and then move forward. But usually when you think about it, if you really love a product, wouldn't it be even better for you to have a sort of stake in it, to be able to participate, to be able to share feedback, to be able to help it in some meaningful way to on its path? That's definitely a lot more interesting and a lot better. And I think if we zoom out again, the network has its path with the entire ecosystem, with hundreds and hundreds of startups that are currently building from around the world, of which we're super excited. We just had this hackathon with 1,000 developers from around the world, some of which have presented some of their projects at X Day and so
I
forth.
will want to elaborate on this a little bit
Yeah,
later.
afterwards.
Yes.
And then if I look at a group of companies that take the technology and try to accelerate and come with different insights and ideas, these are complementary approaches that happen at the same time in order to accelerate the expansion of the network. Now, a good idea, if we think again from scratch, is what are we actually building, and what would be a parallel metaphor to how different this is, but also relatable to some of the things we're building. Well, if you think about it, I could state it in terms of, let's say, business models or technologies. If I were to state technologies, you could think about, let's say, Bitcoin as this idea of a Linux system, which is purely focused on code, very technical. That's the entire conversation. You could think about Ethereum as kind of Windows, Microsoft with their operating system and so forth. And you could think about what we are doing as a sort of Apple, a kind of vertically integrated solution not only with the different, let's say, software modules, nodes, and so forth, but then also the different applications built on top, the different tools built on top, and an open source app store where builders from around the world can plug in their applications, leverage the technology, and build entire business models from scratch. We've built a lot of things within this space. And this is why at first, when you hear about things, people either discover about, let's say, a cryptocurrency or the blockchain, which are very technical terms or very economics focused terms. But in reality, what's necessary in order to expand and cultivate a network is much closer to what's necessary to expand and grow a country. You have infrastructure that you're building within the country. You have population that you want to attract or grow. You have a gross domestic product that comes from the exchange and value that is created or exchanged within that economy. And you want to always expand that. You have a voting mechanism and governance for people to express their thoughts and so forth. Now, everything I've described is not only applied to the country model, but is applied to this blockchain network, which sort of can be brought to this idea that a blockchain network at its best can become a kind of sovereign network state. That's an entire rabbit hole to go in and explore, but I'm just saying that there's a continuum where you start as a network, you build the product, you grow the ecosystem, and depending on how valuable, how much of an impact it has, and how much value it brings to the world, you could see it linking several nations, several communities from around the world.
So it's not only a metaphor, because there
Yes.
are also theories, and I do recommend our followers to study a little bit the concept of the network state and to go deeper if they want to understand. There are elements that are from, let's say, the traditional business world, but with a twist. I can imagine the App Store, but is an App Store that is more transparent, open, and everybody can look at things, and different other ecosystems like WordPress, for example, is an ecosystem that is also bringing together a lot of open source or not really entirely open source developers to build it on, but particularities are there.
Maybe to again
Yes.
complement this, another very useful metaphor to think about the blockchain part is as a new type of computer. And if you remember the 80s, 90s, when the first computers came out, the interfaces were very different. So at first you only had command prompt interfaces. Then you had graphical user interfaces, which were a big breakthrough. Then you had a lot of advancements that made it possible such that you don't only buy some software, but you have a store, a kind of marketplace for others to come in, to ship their applications and so forth. I do believe that we're very much reliving that idea, because at first you need to build this computer, make it work very well. At first people only write code and interact through code with it. Then you build some interfaces, but they're not the best yet. Some people understand them, some people not. You have a lot of iterations like that until Apple, for instance, comes along, and you see several insights that not only have to do with technology. You see an insight in technology, but you see some insights also about psychology and human nature. That when you have this computer that you take with you, that everyone can put in their home, at that point, everything changed, because computers were not what we see them today. People did not have computers in their home. Computers were this strange new thing that most people would not understand. Now, when you make it so relatable, so cool, people want to have it even though they may not understand at first what to do with it. And then they discovered that you can calculate, you can plan, you can write, you can do some very, very basic stuff. All of a sudden, fast forward 1-2 decades, and on that computer, you can do 1 million things.
It's also about psychological aspects, I guess, because it's like in the old ages where you, for example, you had your own data center in your house, and now to store your data in cloud is pretty common. Maybe in the same way, a computer from the classical point of view, you can see it and touch it, but blockchain as a metaphor is like a computer in the sky or in the cloud. It's a little bit difficult for human brain to very fast understand and assimilate this difference. Talking about how different things are in this new setup, I want to tackle a little bit the cryptocurrency part as a part of the MultiversX universe. There are a lot of people that are invested, and they are maybe they have this idea that you are doing a cryptocurrency and that's it. I guess there are a lot of people that don't understand yet the whole thing. I would kindly ask you to explain a little bit as a general theory, but also apply to what you are doing. What's the importance and the role of eGOLD in the ecosystem, and why there are so many other tokens issued by different other players, and how this is playing, and how important is or is not for MultiversX the eGOLD part, which is the most spectacular for some.
Again, maybe going back to the metaphor of the country, it's very simple to see how as you build a country, you build the infrastructure, you attract different actors, those want to build something. You need a means of exchange and an incentive structure to align the different parties, enable them to exchange value. And at the end of the day, the faster this interaction goes, the faster the country expands, the larger the actor set is, the more interesting the tools are that they're building and so forth, the larger the economy becomes. If I'm coming back to the MultiversX network, I was mentioning this is a new and different type of computer. This computer is very effective at doing something that normal computers have not been very effective at, which is transparent computation, cryptographic proofs for everything that's happening in the network, and then deterministic smart contracts, such that you can interact with computation in a way that is very clear, strict, and enables you to write any type of contracts in digital form. For this type of computer to exist, you have two ways. You can build it on site, on your machine, in some way, but then everyone has to trust you. And that can only scale so much. On the other hand, once you have the architecture that enables breakthrough cryptography, algorithms, distributed systems, and so forth, you can create a network structure that has an incentive in itself, that has a token to run this incentive game, to then say, I want this network to do this type of proof of work or this type of computation. And whoever runs a computer with this software will be paid X amount of money for running the software wherever they may be. Now, one of the breakthroughs that the blockchain network came with was not only this architecture that enables the properties that I was mentioning, transparency, cryptographic guarantees, or deterministic programmable contracts, but a way of bootstrapping a network where the actors in the network should not be trusted by default. You don't have to worry about them because there is an economic incentive. they will do what the network requires or they will not be paid. So the eGOLD token, coming back to the metaphor in the country, exists to power the entire network. Without the eGOLD token, the network cannot exist, will not process transactions, will not work and perform any of the properties that we were mentioning. So in this respect, it is crucial to the network. Now, how will the network expand? What type of applications will it bring? How will the actors interact with the token? That's an open-ended game, because as with the country, if you have a great country that is expanding really well, that grows really fast, you will have many people wanting to be part of the country, wanting to be part of the economy, and this applies to blockchains as well. If I zoom out for 1 second, there are then hundreds or thousands of other tokens that exist with their own microeconomies, with this new type of products that give a stake to the users and make them contributors in their products. Why is this valuable? Why is this different for Web3? Well, if you are just simplifying things, if you have two types of people, a consumer that is there just to consume, and then the next day he switches to something else that he consumes and so forth, and a different type of person that has skin in the game, that can grow with the network, that can contribute, can share feedback, all of that, and is aligned economically. Which relationship is stronger? It's clear that this type of relationship would be stronger. If you can scale this to thousands, tens of thousands, or millions of people, then you have something that is very, very powerful as a premise to building new type of products, new type of technologies, new type of architectures where people are embedded in the conversation and can vote, can express their thoughts. Now, concluding, a cryptocurrency exists only to serve the network as it expands, and without expansion of the network, the cryptocurrency has no value, as a currency in a bad country has no value.
I want to explain a little bit more how this universe of MultiversX is being formed, and I think a very useful approach was at X-Day, your annual event. The second edition was recently, first one in Paris, second one in Bucharest, the next one we will find out soon, I'm sure. And for me as an observer, informed observer, but still an observer, it was absolutely fascinating to see different layers of companies, ecosystems that appeared so fast in what you've built. On one hand, we have your core products, and I want to go through them a little bit and invite people to discover more. Then I've noticed some strategic partnerships you've announced with Tencent, Google Cloud, AWS, and others. And last but not least, it's very interesting to see how a startup, even if it's a 1.4 billion valuation startup, is growing other startups through launchpads and hackathons and sensors. So basically, just for our audience to understand, we have products that are being developed by MultiversX, but also different players that are developing using the technology of MultiversX, and last but not least, startups that are just trying. They are in a very early stage, and they are starting hackathons, and they are trying to enter the ecosystem. So it's a very interesting approach, especially for the ones that are not very familiar with the space. So let's start with your core product. So we have a lot of them. We have the X portal, the app that is being used to access more consumers. You have X exchange, your exchange, X Fabric, X Alias, X Money, X Spotlight, X Launchpad. Let's explain very fast, if possible,
the relationship and what they do.
Why
Sure.
we have this architecture, and maybe to come with some updates or what's important, and also
Sure.
updates regarding the core protocol
Sure.
of the
Sure.
system. So we have the protocol, we have the core products, and new startups in the ecosystem to explain.
So the most important part that we've started with is this breakthrough that we've brought, where we said we can build a network that is 1000x most scalable than Bitcoin and Ethereum. And we can do so in a way that is still 100% secure and then decentralized. That was a very important breakthrough. We've built a team with which we can build rockets literally, and we've delivered this technology that is now open sourced and used by thousands of builders around the world with companies, startups, and so forth. Now, 2-3 points around this. We've, for instance, unveiled some important improvements in terms of performance, important improvements in terms of security. We've unveiled, for instance, on-chain 2FA, the only blockchain at this point that has this technology embedded to save billions of dollars
So
in
basically
people's...
for enhanced security,
Exactly.
it's like the similar of two-factor authentication
Exactly.
from Web 2.0.
But
You managed
on the chain.
to launch it as a first
Yes.
in the blockchain world.
Yes, yes. So very, very important part. And this is live, again, open source. Anyone can play with it and build with it. And this is the structure on which everything else is built. Now, on top of this, we have, as I said, hundreds or thousands of builders from around the world that are building new type of applications, protocols for different things. And I will just take three. We can dive into more, but I will take 3 just as an example.
We will anyway use also the power of graphics, and we will give additional infos for the ones that are following.
So one of the classes of applications is decentralized finance. Decentralized finance, in a nutshell, tries to take everything we're doing in finance at this point, just digitizing it, making it almost autonomous and decentralized, transparent, such that you can, for instance, take a lending protocol that normally the bank does with a lot of screening and so forth, and create an automatic flow to enable people to bring in crypto, for instance, as collateral and receive loans in digital euro, digital USD, and so forth. That's just one example. We have Hatom, that is a startup built on MultiversX with a total value locked of, I'm not sure where it is at this point, but 1 month ago or something, it was at $250 million. Now, to have a startup that reaches that point is extraordinary. It means that $200 million is not peanuts anymore. A lot is being built, a lot of people are using it.
So this is just one example of
a protocol that is built and product built on top of MultiversX.
In the ecosystem.
Exactly. Okay. You can take then a different example, which is, for instance, payments, where you have Pulsar Money. Pulsar Money is this social money protocol where you just enable people on Twitter or any other Discord and so forth to exchange tips and socialize with money in a simple native way, such that you make the experience more interesting, you get some tasks done, you can set bounties, do a lot of things like that.
I've asked some examples, and your team sent it to me an infinite list of products and projects developed. It's quite impressive. So Pulsar Money, we have also Cantina Royale in gaming. We have
Nights of Cantina.
Also some very technical stuff. We have Holoride, also very interesting project. Anyway, there are many.
Sure.
I will also use the power of graphics and text that is together with this dialogue for people to understand and discover different applications. It's very interesting that we see very serious and important, like more boring stuff like security, DeFi, and so on and so forth, but also gaming and entertainment. Even if gaming in blockchain is also a very serious game, let's say, because a game, it's a microeconomical environment where you can test different things and issue tokens. Also important, I think, for the ones that are not very aware, in MultiversX ecosystem, you can also issue your own token, right? It's not only eGOLD.
Sure.
There are how many different other tokens are in the system?
I mean, probably a few thousands.
Thousands.
Yes,
okay.
And we expect this to grow significantly. So if I move one step further,
Please.
we have the network, we have the ecosystem with thousands of builders and this type of projects. Then at XDay specifically, we said we want to build new bridges to open up even larger conversations. So we've had, for instance, for the builders, a hackathon with 1,000 builders participating, demonstrating some of these applications and so forth.
So earlier stage startups,
Exactly. People that basically came there, did not sleep. They had 1 month before to prepare, and then came there and did not sleep for 2-3 days with pizzas during the night and so
more
forth.
Than 1,000 hackers, 150 projects,
that
70
presented.
countries, 41 judges, 29 partners and supporters. So basically it's a notion of hackathon, which is pretty well known in the old setup also, but at a new level.
Yes.
Second layer, there are companies that already develop products and there are viable business models already, independent, and they are utilizing the technology in the same way we are utilizing different other technologies. On top of that, I've noticed some key strategic partnerships with big tech companies. Can you go through those a little bit and explain why do you need Google Cloud, Amazon Web Services, Tencent, and other partners you consider being relevant?
Yeah, so the idea was we might build this new country in the middle of the ocean. It might be the paradise, but for as long as you don't have bridges and connections to all the other countries, all the other places in the world where people exist, do stuff, you will not have adoption. So this was the theme through which we made it very visual that we want to build these bridges with all the different parties and stakeholders of a society, of an economy. And specifically on this front, we've invited Google, Amazon, Tencent, Deutsche Telekom, and then there was also Axelar, which is more Web3, on stage. And these are just some of the big partners that we're collaborating with. And with each of them, we've opened up some specific conversations. Why? Again, if you want to reach billions of users in adoption, you might as well start with some conversations with the guys that have billions of users in adoption. You might learn some lessons, there might be conversations. And then the most important part is with each of them, they have a very rigorous filter. It takes a lot of time to come to a point where they come in our island, sort of, at our conferences, and we do this collaboration. So with Google, we have one direction where they're supporting the builders in the ecosystem. So they receive credits, they can accelerate some of the things that they're doing. Second, they're integrating the data set that the entire MultiversX ecosystem has in Google BigQuery. And then third, there will be a possibility to launch nodes from their solution with one-click deployment. That's very important, to say the least, as a starting point. Now, there are many other conversations with them. Again, Deutsche Telekom has become a staking provider, a validator within the MultiversX network. Tencent has an entire focus on metaverse spatial computing builders, and they want to support all our builders in this ecosystem, offer them grants, offer them credits for cloud and so forth. And then AWS, again, becoming both staking provider and making it easy for people to launch the one-click deployment node that enables the ecosystem to expand a lot faster and a lot simpler. Axelar is one of the largest bridges, decentralized bridges in the Web3 space. Having them there just means that we're expanding to have connections with all the other ecosystem that exists and are connected with them. There are many other conversations, but this just again opens up the bridge with one class of companies which are large, have a lot of impact, and find the technology extremely exciting and useful in some of the things that they are doing.
Again, direct links to deeper conversations for each you will find in the graphics. Building bridges, it's a central theme of XDay and your philosophy in general. Also in this space there is the discussion to build bridges with authorities, to build bridges on the legal front. Being a new kind of setup, a new country, this also needs rules, or maybe not. Depends. We are seeing the European Union doing what European Union is doing now, trying to push regulations. We have this discussion about MiCA, markets in crypto asset regulation. I've noticed on the XDay stage that you have some very strong partners in dealing with that, like Deloitte and others. We saw also some politicians from Romania, France, UK. You're also trying to build bridges and to have a direct and transparent dialogue. How this is going, and how do you see this space evolving? Are the regulators more relaxed, the opposite? What is your vision or the way things should be done?
I mean, first of all, I would say it is very important for us to discuss with each of these parties, make sure that we communicate what we're building on their language, help them understand what the benefits are, what the opportunities are, because there are opportunities for each of the stakeholders, whether it's states looking at the technology, using it for their communities, enabling young people, older people, and so forth to take part of these opportunities, whether it's regulators looking carefully to understand the new class of applications or the new class of assets that exist, understanding them, seeing how they can be expanded and not bottlenecked or suffocated.
And how maybe they can use them also for
doing
a better job for their countries. No?
Precisely, and I think here specifically we've had, as you've pointed out, several ministers from Romania. We've had Deloitte, with which we're collaborating on several of these subjects, and we've also had many conversations, for instance, with central banks, several central banks from Europe. Now, what I would say is the observation is that you could always have better, let's say, environments or worse environments. If you look at the US for the last period, there has been a very almost sclerotic and aggressive behavior.
Not great for US, but good for the others.
For the others. But then Europe has been much more conservative. Now, our conversations have been very productive up until this point, and we found that the different regulators, the different parties with which we've had conversations have been curious to understand, to help in what way they can. And we very much appreciate this type of interaction, because we do believe that each of these parties can use the technology, can leverage the technology in the same way that once you understood the internet opened up a completely new world. There are immediate tangible benefits, like the ones of opening up new businesses, connecting people that are not connected,
offering
and
better
so forth.
services for citizens.
Yes, but then there are also very intangible benefits, like the fact that something like MultiversX would not have existed without the internet. Like, there is no connection to the knowledge that you would find online all over the world, and so forth. So I believe in the same way, blockchain technology will open up the door for many of the young people to do things that are considered impossible today, to organize between themselves, incentivize and create incentives for other type of problems that they care about, to play with that, because it's almost a kind of multiplayer financial game. So for them, it will be so natural as a child today playing on the tablet.
Gaming is not only a game.
Yes.
And that's why we see a lot of gaming projects also in MultiversX ecosystem and in Web3 in general. Let's not forget about your own products.
Yes.
About Xportal, about Xmoney.
Yeah.
What's new?
So as I've said, as we look at the different layers through which you can look at the network, we have also considered what the most interesting ways would be to accelerate the expansion of the network. And then we came to a conclusion that, for instance, having a user interface that's super simple, very slick, secure, and that enables all the services that you can do through a blockchain space, and creating a kind of not only crypto app, but super app in terms of financial services that has both a card and this native Web3 services, but then has also a native app store within the app for builders to list their applications. We've considered this to be a very significant accelerator. Why? Precisely because of what we were mentioning before. If you think about this big computer that no one understands, no one can use, and then an app store that enables builders to put in their applications and users to connect and play with them, this definitely accelerates the cycle because it connects the parties. That's one aspect.
We are talking about Xportal,
exactly.
And most probably, I can guarantee that we will have also a link to Sibiu Biriș's presentation at XDay for more details.
Definitely. So if you want a card and if you want to play with this, Xportal is the best applications that you can try.
Talking about building bridges, you will see in Xportal that you can issue a card through a partnership with a classical player in the ecosystem.
MasterCard. So we have, which brings us to another company that we have with the set of products, which is Xmoney, Xmoney Crypto, Xmoney Fiat. These are two companies that are regulated under the central banks, Central Bank of Romania, Central Bank of Portugal, and are there to enable payments. Merchants, business to business accepting payments, whether it's in fiat or in crypto, and then ideally both of them. Once you can do this and have a stable coin on top, then you're playing a very different game. So that's one other direction.
Stable coin means a coin that is also related with the classical fiat currency.
Yeah, so if someone is in the banking space, an e-money token would qualify as a stable coin just because it gives you both all the digital benefits regulated and then no volatility. You just can use the best of what the system can get. Now you see the business to consumer approach that we're doing to Xportal, the business to business approach for payments that we're doing to Xmoney. Then we have Xfabric, which is this idea of enabling creators to deploy something as simple and fast as possible for their communities, experiment, explore, and then at the same time creating a kind of operating system or marketplace for other apps to be included there as well. And then we have X Launchpad, which is just this acceleration of startups, enabling them to penetrate the ecosystem, to build something, to move forward, to learn some lessons. Then we have X Exchange, which was the most, let's say, the first exchange within the ecosystem that gave liquidity to a lot of these startups, a lot of these tokens. And then you could discuss about other products as well. We're constantly building new products in addition to accelerating the ecosystem as a whole. I think the key idea here, beyond the different bridges we're building, is that there is a stronger force in this complementary approach, where you have open source technology that anyone can use, that an entire ecosystem of builders from around the world will build on to bring the most creative or interesting solutions. And at the same time, we bring in better tools to facilitate that type of market deployment of products, to accelerate that, make it simpler, and so forth. In the same way that if you look at, as I said, Linux, Microsoft with Windows and what that was, and then the Apple approach with a vertically integrated solution. If you could have a vertically integrated solution, but then also transparent and open source, that definitely brings a lot stronger leverage and force for adoption.
Yeah, I will also recommend the presentations that were done for each of the core products. Some of them are more technical, but others oriented to consumers and more easy to understand. Anyway, it's a process.
Sure.
To discover, to learn, to maybe ask silly questions. This is my job description. And to open the minds a little bit for new horizons, new ideas. Moving further, I would like also to tackle your brain a little bit regarding the future, and I will start with this very interesting discussion that at some point you've put on the table regarding how MultiversX and the blockchains can contribute to a better world, not only technically speaking, let's say, not better tech, more open, more transparent, and so on and so forth, but also a technology that is addressing one of the main challenges that we face as humans. We don't know exactly what truth is anymore, or what facts are anymore. Our good friend Elon Musk is fighting with that on X, and Web 2.0 proved that it failed to solve this problem, also because of the fact that we have this algorithmization mechanism that is just pushing what's more efficient, not what's true. Or sometimes truth can be a little bit annoying, and it's therefore it's not productive. Purely, if you are looking purely at the profit KPIs, let's say. You also have this very interesting separate project, X Fabric, that is addressing somehow, it's dedicated to creators, to content producers, and so on and so forth. So I imagine that you had a lot of discussion. So the long story short is how MultiversX and Web3 can help us solving this important challenge, if it's possible to be solved. What's your vision?
I think if we look to the future, there are probably three directions that blockchain networks will go towards. The first one is blockchain like MultiversX will probably become a kind of truth machine for the world. The second one, we'll discuss a bit about global autonomous payment networks, not only, let's say, planetary, but also interplanetary. You need to look a bit beyond the next 10 years.
Maybe 20, 30,
yes.
but we will need to
yes.
go on Mars eventually
yes.
to start with.
Yes. And then also this idea that will probably sound a lot more science fiction at this point, but will probably become a lot more real during the next 3, 5, 10 years, which is the idea of a network state, of superseding nation states because of better connections, better alignment between communities, and starting nations, new type of countries that are cloud first and have places in the world just as a secondary element. So I'll take each and only offer a kind of idea around how we're trying to do that and how I believe it will become crucial during the next period to address each of them. The first part is, of course, with the rapid advancement of AI tools, large language models, GPT-4, now very, very soon we'll have GPT-5. I would expect during the next 3 to 6 months we'll have a kind of breakthrough version that will again shock everyone to how fast you can create content, how seductive it will be at every level, and then how much of a useless function it will be for your senses to detect anything created by humans versus machines. So we'll very quickly, we are actually past the point where senses enable you to say what's true and what's not. I can create text that is indistinguishable from the robot and the best of humans. I can create pictures that are indistinguishable to the eye. I can create videos and everything related to that, music and so forth. So given this part, you have to wonder, how can society exist? How can the political system, the voting system, economics, how can these things exist when you start to have tools that are so bewildering in some sense that they will shock you at first. And then at the same time, there are some benefits there that are extraordinary. Of course, they will improve your life. They will make almost everyone sound like a Shakespeare, really good at creating the images.
So one way or another, we need as humanity to digitalize the concept of truth.
Exactly.
The concept of trust.
So as we scale this crisis and reach a point where it becomes clear that humanity cannot exist in its current form anymore unless it has a truth machine. A machine specifically designed to anchor the truth in all its layers. Every digital media file, everything that we create will have to be authenticated in some sense, because otherwise everything will become useless.
Let's give a very simple example. For example, if a photography, a picture is also an NFT, you know if this is an original or not, maybe just a digital copy. Or
let's maybe take it a bit to the extreme. The idea is, suppose you have elections, and during election, it is an intention of your adversary to essentially modify or manipulate the image of how you are perceived, how people are looking at you, and so forth. Suppose that he prepares 3 videos that show you in the most crazy, exotic, and compromising situations.
I can imagine.
Deep fakes that are so well executed.
Nobody can tell if they are true or not.
And once you see them, you cannot unsee them. Even if you correct the stuff, even if you know that it's like that.
We need a key.
The question is, how can you prevent these tools having the impact that they will have? And one way to do that is embedding at the metadata level of every file a cryptographic proof that shows the origin. If you can show the origin of every document, then it becomes irrelevant if they had post-production, if they were modified 1,000 times. If it's not verified or authenticated, then it's by default a deepfake. You know it's a deepfake.
And how this concept
what does it have to do with blockchains?
How this concept is compatible with the anonymity on blockchain, or how you can know if a deep fake using a blockchain technology is being originated by an opponent. What's the key?
The idea here is you have authentication, and then how do you preserve privacy or pseudonymity? And there is a technology like zero knowledge technology, which enables you the full spectrum of authentication verification without knowing who has done it. So you have a class of
but you can tell it's fake.
Yes, you can tell that it's done by a person that has signed it. You can tell who it was, and then by exclusion you can tell that everything that is not signed is fake. And then in this way you can solve a problem that seems insurmountable at first in a way that is very elegant, precisely going back to our point, because of this new computer that is transparent, has cryptographic guarantees, and then has this deterministic contract. It's almost that if you zoom out, and then we can jump to maybe the second point. If you zoom out, humanity up until this point has only had written and verbal, let's say, histories with paper proofs.
And a lot of lawsuits.
A lot of lawsuits. But this precisely because you did not have cryptographic guarantees.
And technically the possibility to follow everything. So the notions like smart contracts and everything can maybe...
This is maybe at a deeper level. This is the most advanced, elegant and rigorous history that humanity can create, because it's verified by mathematics, cryptography, open source technology, and it changes everything that we've done. Up until this point, we had to write the things. We could modify them. When I don't write, when I don't like what you've been writing, I edit it, I take it out, and so forth. You can think about the Soviet Union and some of the other players.
Or to rewrite history in the way you like. Huh?
Exactly. Once you have a version of history that is cannot be counterfeited, is written in real time, the world will change in this respect very, very significantly.
Talking about a better world through technology and Web 3, I've also noticed an idea, and I would like you to elaborate a little bit on how the financial inclusion of as many people as possible can help us solve a lot of the tensions that we are seeing. At the time of our discussion, seems already a common subject about, okay, maybe World War III will start, or new wars. People are a little bit tensioned about it, and it's logical to be like that. So the world is not in peace, at least now. There are a lot of challenges, and maybe new technologies can help us to solve some of our challenges. How do you think this is possible?
I think there's a line in Dickens's The Tale of the Two Cities that starts with something like, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And this almost captures the idea that on the one hand you have the best technologies coming out right now, and there's so much excitement of what you could build with them. Then on the other hand you have some things that are plaguing society, that are destroying lives and all of that. And one of the core ideas that we built Elrond at first and MultiversX for was this idea that at first blockchains were all about financial systems. And one of the most valuable things that a blockchain could do was to build a new type of financial system that is open, transparent, high bandwidth, almost like the internet works, and then give access to anyone, anywhere in the world. Because it's simple, you don't have to go through all the things that you usually go through in a normal, let's say, service. And as long as there exists internet, you can already serve the people. Now, why is this crucial? Because at first, people need to have access. You can improve their lives in many ways after they have access, but without access, there is no possibility. They cannot exchange, they cannot store any type of value. They have to live their life sort of bound to only how the day looks and cannot think about longer time horizons and so forth. The better the tools are, that civilization brings, that society brings, the easier it is to sort of by default simplify some things. And it's almost like you're not starting from scratch in our world today. You have this set of tools that you sort of receive, take for granted. Some people in the world do not receive these tools. Being mindful of them, being mindful that there are almost 2 billion of people, is a great necessity and very important. And we continue to believe that with an application like Xportal, we can offer this type of solutions to people, especially in those regions where these tools are needed the most.
And by raising the general level of living, this can detention other potential problems. Yeah. We are also seeing a lot of new technologies that are emerging simultaneously. The rise of AI, blockchains, and so on and so forth. But also, we are seeing this new concept of visual spatial computing, metaverses, and so on. All those technologies are somehow maybe complementary. Taking in consideration all the developments, how do you see those technologies will work together? How this will change the world in the way we see the world today, and how this will impact MultiversX in the near future?
We are intentionally positioned at the frontier and cutting edge of these technologies. We're not only building a breakthrough that is out and live within the blockchain space, but we believe the blockchain will be the substrate for interacting both with artificial intelligence, strong artificial intelligence, and spatial computing. And what I mean by this is, just think about it. All these 3 technologies are computing platforms. They're doing computation that is very special. Blockchain has this transparency element, cryptographic guarantees element, and deterministic contracts that enables you to define rules. AI has, on the other hand, a lot of expanding force, creativity, but then it needs to interact with this transparency force that anchors things to truth, where you know if something has been done or has not been done, where the AI cannot be left to, let's say, hallucinate. On the other hand, this also enables you to defend. Having defensive AI tools is very, very important. And then having offensive AI tools, leveraging the AIs, will be extremely important. I do believe that probably during the next 3 to 5 years, one of the, let's take it during this year, one of the most exciting and fundamental elements toward which the entire AI community is looking is AI agents that can execute an entire suite of services and tasks for you in a fully autonomous way. the faster we reach that point, the faster you'll want to have hundreds or thousands of them, because it will literally be like setting an army in the morning to work for you, and you'll just want another one, another one. Now, the implications of that are that during the next 3 to 5 years, there's a potential that once we reach that point, we'll have vastly more AI agents than humans on Earth, performing calculations, tasks, work, transactions, and so forth. To accommodate and scale that type of interaction, you'll need a new system, very different than the one we have today, and blockchain can serve as the substrate that enables this type of interaction. Moving one step further, the fact that you can put computational artifacts all around you, or you can take your mind on a completely new journey in some other place where you discuss with Einstein or Aristotle or whoever else you find interesting and exciting as a dialogue. I think once you can see that you can do that, not doing it would rob you of a richer, more interesting, more exciting experience. There are at this point innovations at the frontier, for instance, of AI and metaverse that combine these tools to offer to children a different type of education and experience. A personal tutor that is fully digital, that takes into account the different needs, can be there day and night, 24/7, and then can literally open up new worlds for the child to learn, to expand, to try new things. If we can do that for children, imagine what else we can do in all the different fields as soon as we get the first milestone done. So I think these technologies, these 3 technologies specifically, put together, have a combined force unlike almost anything that we've had up until this point, and will each multiply the force of the others, precisely because one of them anchors things and enables you to set some clear rules and borders and so forth. The other one is almost like, the one is a truth machine and the other one is a creative force. And the third one is just making everything as vivid, visual, and rich in experience as possible. I mean, how fast this will progress, how different will be a function of each of the technologies. Because, for instance, if I reach a point where I do have these AI agents, and every person doesn't only have an assistant, their personal assistant, a sort of genie that you receive that interacts and enables you to live life better, more rich, perhaps people will want a lot more. Perhaps they will want one that does this education, one that does sports, one that does physics, one that does math, one that does business. And then to the extent that you can have that and it can generate value then rather than consume value for you, it will almost be like the flip switch that you've had with Ubers, thinking about the car that is stationary, that you can start producing money with, but taking it one step further where the car is autonomous. And while you're doing your work, the car is going through the city and making you money rather than consuming your money. That's a very, very exciting way of looking at computers and what they can do for humanity.
There are things that we should be worried about. There are maybe directions or things that can go wrong, or you're 99% optimistic that nothing bad will happen, because we know the theory, with a tool you can build or you can kill. What makes you super optimistic about the future, a future that is being accelerated the speed of light maybe with the new technologies that we are seeing everywhere, and where MultiversX is playing a pretty significant role day by day.
I believe that generally, given everything we've known, and given the tools that we have with science, engineering, technology, and capital, I am an optimist, let's say techno-optimist, just because I see these tools. Suppose I had this conversation 4,000 years ago, things might have been a bit trickier, but I do believe that at every point in time we'll have challenges. We'll inevitably face a lot of challenges for every technology. Take blockchains, for instance. The fact that you need to build all this new type of security technology for people not to get robbed of their money. This is why we've built the on-chain 2FA. Otherwise, billions and billions of people lose their money, and then it's a pity because this slows down the entire adoption space and so forth. Once we built this, we've learned the lessons. Now we can accelerate and do it in a thoughtful way. I similarly believe that with AI, we're going to face this very significant crisis for humanity, where all the different tools that we've used within society will not work anymore. And this is one thing to state it philosophically, and a very different thing to get hit with in the face, as you see that voting cannot happen anymore. Any kind of conversation you have is sort of faked. You receive audio messages, videos, and all of that. Cannot believe anything anymore. And this brings us back to the blockchain part, the truth machine, and the necessity of what blockchain can offer for society. And then even for the different other risks that I see, I generally see the risks, but I also see the net positive. Because what's the alternative? Is there an alternative that we go back to the caves and now stop everything and so forth? I mean,
the general theory is that we can do the same but slower. This is a very complicated discussion because still we can't have an agreement for all players to slow down. So your vision is that the only path is to accelerate as fast as possible, and maybe if wrongdoings are on the way to correct them,
I mean,
case by case, maybe using the AI technologies also to solve potential challenges on the way.
I from time to time come back to a paper that I know I read 5 or 10 years ago, but I come back to it, which has the title of the astronomical opportunity cost of missed technological advancements. That essentially where the author makes this case that there's an astronomical opportunity cost that results in deaths, in pain, and so forth around the world for every step that we're not doing, that we're delaying. And if we could see the visible effects of that, then instead of the precautionary principle, we might use the proactionary principle, which states that not that you should recklessly push forward at full speed without thinking about the implications, but that when you decide, you should not only think about the risks of doing the stuff, but also the risks of not doing the action, the risks of a stagnating economy where you don't have growth, where people need to start wars to make some money, where all this political game is a sort of zero-sum game and so forth, rather than an expanding game where you have new territories, new fields where you can create completely new things that you could not do before. Can we do this for science? Can we do this for health? Can we do this for almost every field that we have? I do think that with the tools that are at our fingertips right now, we'll be able to look at the entire universe in a new light, at new laws, perhaps new laws of physics that we'll discover, new engineering that we can do for all the fields that we care about. And then not doing it seems the biggest wrong that we could do as humanity. Stagnating, thinking, and then just letting the opportunities fly might be the biggest failure that we'll look back at, especially given the current trajectory. So very excited about this part, very excited about the incomparable net positive that comes with acceleration, with a larger pie that people can have, and don't need to fight for redistribution, because that's the only game. And then if you look at history, we've learned this lesson 1,000 times, that for every tool, at first we got super scared that this will take everything for us, that it will not enable us to live anymore, we'll die 1,000 times. And then every time we've discovered that in fact it was good, it could help us, it was much better than we thought, and so forth. It doesn't mean that we should not take into account the psychological effects. We should definitely do that, but perhaps in a much more thoughtful way. Perhaps thinking both not only about our benefits, but the opportunity cost of missing this enormous impact of improving the world that it seems to me we cannot afford to lose or miss.
Maybe we need to have a little bit more faith in us as humans. Maybe we are rather good than bad. We have examples in history. I know nuclear energy can be used to kill people or to create green energy. Let's hope it will be the same in this case.
Maybe the thing that I kept discussing with my kids was how interesting it is that we used to gaze at the stars and think about our place around them. Now we sometimes find ourselves just looking at the dirt and discussing about the dirt and how that all is. Maybe we'll need to remember that we've gone in space, that we've built some stuff that is extraordinary if you think about it, and that we can do much better, much more interesting things, and we need not look at the things we've done thousands of years ago as the biggest things possible. We can in fact do other things like that, or much larger things than that in the future. So I'd love to see us as humanity play that type of role much more than the, let's say, mediocre one around the house.
In this positive note, I think we can end our conversation, even if we can continue for another 2 or 3 hours. If any final thought or message for the audience you consider important, please.
I mean, we have the biggest challenges and the biggest opportunities in front of us. And it really is time to build, take these tools, build as hard as possible and make something of them. It will not happen overnight, not happen by itself, but if we put our minds and hearts to it, I think we can achieve something that the next generations will be in awe of and will wonder how we've managed to do it.
Beniamin Mincu, thank you very much. Beniamin Mincu, the CEO and co-founder of MultiversX, today at Upgrade 100 Special. MultiversX, not only a company, as I hope is clear now, but an entire ecosystem and also a vision. So I kindly invite you to follow the additional resources you will find out in this video and in the materials that are surrounding this interview, and to discover and explore more from MultiversX and in general from blockchain and the Web3 space, because there are very interesting ideas and inspiring ideas you can grab from there. Thank you very much. I'm Dragoș Stanca. See you next time.